Well, good day, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of Live Chat with James. Yes, I've been off for a few days. We were taking a bit of a summer break, but we are back. Yes, Live Chat with James here on ProPix TV, coming to you from the studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Don't forget that throughout this show, if you have any questions or topics that you want to discuss, by all means, throw them up in the comment section. And barring that, in the description line, you can also call in live via WhatsApp. I'm just going to activate that as well so you can be a part of the conversation. Yes, on WhatsApp, it's 1-368-997-6741. So feel free to call in on WhatsApp. Yes, of course, you can be a part of the conversation as we continue with the show. And as we continue here and get started all in one, I'm just going to make sure that our WhatsApp is there. It's trying to back up, but that's okay. We'll just leave it open. So, of course, we can catch it if you call. By all means, folks, be a part of the show. Once again, welcome to Live Chat with James. We have had a very busy week, even though there's been no shows here. We've talked on the other stations. Yes, as those who follow me closely know that I do other programs. Yes, I do Primetime Live on Jess FM and Jess TV, coming to you from Lethbridge, Alberta, Canada. Yes, Thursday nights at 8 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. It is a live call-in show where we take a look at the headlines locally, nationally, and globally. In addition, we do a deep dive into various topics. This week, we've been looking at part two of a three-part series in the film and television industry throughout North America. Of course, with that, it has been a very interesting show. And next week on live chat, on Primetime Live on Jess FM, we will be talking with representatives from Film LA, as well as a beautiful ranch filming location and studio in Santa Monica. So again, you'll want to be a part of that next week on Jess FM and Jess TV. You can find us at jessfm.ca for that. But welcome anyway to ProPix TV. Tonight's episode, as I said, we are going to take a look at various issues. But if you did not see the show tonight on Jess FM and Jess TV, you can still check it out. It does rebroadcast on demand, so you can check it out on the Facebook Live or, of course, on the Jess FM YouTube and other channels. Or just go straight to jessfm.ca and you can watch the Primetime Live episode from tonight where we talked about various film studios and different impacts on which tax credits we'll have on film industries in BC, Alberta, Ontario, Georgia, New York, and California. As you can see on your screen, a crazy looking scene that looks like it's out of New York City, but again, that is actually a film set, a backlot in Langley, British Columbia from, of course, Martini Studios. It's called Martini Town, a beautiful place to film and be a part of the production industry. But again, we'll leave that for another day because we are covering that on Jess FM. So check it out next week. We'll love to have you there. Once again, don't forget that you can log in and contact us via WhatsApp throughout the show, or you can use the chat room here on the different platforms. Now, let's move on with tonight's show. Yes, tonight on Live Chat, chaos at the airports as Canada's largest airline begins grounding flights, threatening to strand 130,000 travelers a day. We're live with the latest, of course, and your calls are welcome. Now, we also want to be looking at the world holding its breath. Yes, President Trump and Vladimir Putin prepare for a high-stakes summit in Alaska. Can they broker peace in Ukraine, or will it push the world closer to the brink? A big question considering that Vladimir Putin earlier yesterday announced confirmation that North Korea has over 10,000 soldiers on the front lines in Ukraine fighting on behalf of Russia, and they have suffered, of course, losses as well. That's very interesting. Excuse me, as we are looking at the eve of the summit in Alaska, not Russia. Yes, of course, Donald Trump, being the delusional old fool that he is, keeps referring to the summit as taking place in Russia. Let's remember that it has been hundreds of years since Russia owned Alaska. So, of course, Donald Trump doesn't know where he is half the time. So it's not surprising that he doesn't know where the summit is or where Alaska is located and that it's a part of a nation. He is supposed to be the commander in chief. And right here at home, the billion-dollar battle in BC's fastest growing city. We'll break down the numbers. Yes, they are shocking behind the Surrey's policing saga and what it's going to mean to the tax bill for Surrey citizens such as myself. And, of course, headlines from Metro Vancouver, across Canada, and around the globe in depth and ready to go. Live Chat with James starts now. Now, good evening and welcome to Live Chat, folks. Again, James Cousineau coming to you from the ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. We begin tonight with a travel crisis unfolding across the country, one that threatens to paralyze the air travel at the absolute peak of summer season. At this hour, Air Canada is actively cancelling flights as the strike deadline for more than 10,000 of its flight attendants looms. Yes, the skies over Canada are going to be grounded, and it is a standoff between Air Canada and their flight attendants. Now, the standoff reached a critical point late on Tuesday when the Canadian Union of Public Employees, or also known as CUPE, served a 72-hour strike notice after negotiations with the airlines reached what the union calls an impasse. That notice makes a full walkout possible as early as Saturday morning, just after midnight Eastern Time. Now, in a swift and serious countermove, Air Canada issued its own lockout notice, setting the stage for a complete work stoppage. The airline isn't waiting until the deadline. In a move it says is designed to allow for an orderly shutdown, a gradual suspension of flights began today, Thursday, August the 14th. Yes, it is 9:02 p.m. here in Vancouver, British Columbia. So depending on the time zone that you're watching from, of course, impacts that information. Now, more cancellations are expected tomorrow with a complete cessation of all Air Canada and Air Canada Rouge services by the weekend, if a last-minute deal cannot be reached. Now, the human cost of this is staggering. The airline estimates that a full shutdown will impact approximately 130,000 customers every single day, including 25,000 Canadians trying to fly home from abroad who could be stranded. Now, let's take a look at how we got here. Yes, the heart of the dispute is the tale of two numbers. At its core, this is a dispute over compensation, but it's more complex than just a simple wage demand. The conflict revolves around two key issues: pay for work that is currently unpaid and a massive disagreement over the value of the airline's contract offer. Now, the union's position is that the members perform a significant amount of essential work for free. Flight attendants are not paid for duties performed before a plane's doors close or after they open. This includes critical pre-flight safety checks, the entire boarding process, and assisting passengers with deplaning. According to CUPE, this unpaid labor averages about 35 hours a month for each flight attendant. They also are fighting against what they call poverty wages, pointing out that starting pay for flight attendants has risen by only $3 an hour since the year 2000, while inflation over that same period has climbed at 69%. The frustration has been visible, with flight attendants holding demonstrations at major airports like Vancouver and Toronto. Now, Air Canada, however, paints a very different picture. The airline says it has tabled a comprehensive settlement that includes a 38% increase in total compensation over 4 years with no concessions asked in return. In a statement, the airline called the union's counterdemands exorbitant and unsustainable. And here is the disconnect that has led to the crisis. While the airline promotes the 38% total compensation figure, which includes benefits and pensions, the union says the actual wage increase on the table is only 17.2% over 4 years. After factoring in a 9% pay cut in their last contract and soaring inflation, CUPE argues this offer is effectively a pay cut. This is not just a simple disagreement over numbers, it's a fundamental conflict over how to value the work being done. It's a strategic communications battle, one with one side focusing on an all-encompassing compensation figure to frame the union as unreasonable, and the other focusing on the actual take-home pay to highlight the financial struggle of its members. Now, let's take a look at the economic ripple effect beyond stranded passengers. Yes, the impact of this dispute extends far beyond airport terminals. A prolonged work stoppage could send shockwaves through the Canadian economy. With that said, let's take a look at a few of the numbers here. Now, flight attendants involved are approximately 10,000 plus. Daily passengers impacted will be approximately 130,000. The economic impact potential is $1.4 billion in GDP loss if the strike was to last 2 weeks. Key union demands, of course, fair wages and pay for unpaid ground time. As you can see, the financial stakes are enormous. Economic analysis project that a 2-week strike could erase about $1.4 billion from Canada's real GDP, with daily losses estimated at nearly $100 million. From the most immediate and perhaps the most critical impact will be our national supply chains. Yes, it does impact that as well, of course. The Canadian Chamber of Commerce has issued a stark warning, urging the federal government to intervene. Nearly half of all pharmaceuticals shipped by air in Canada are carried by Air Canada. A shutdown threatens the delivery of these vital medicines, along with perishable foods, agricultural products, and time-sensitive parts of the manufacturing sector. Now, this isn't just a travel inconvenience, it's a potential disruption to a national logistics and public health. Here in BC, the Surrey Board of Trade has echoed those national concerns, highlighting how reliant local businesses are on stable air cargo and travel to remain competitive. Once again, if you are impacted by the airline stoppage and need goods delivered throughout Western Canada, large shipments taken from, say, BC to Alberta, to Saskatchewan, Manitoba, up to the Yukon, contact our friends at carrymovers.com. That's K-A-R-Y, movers.com. Yes, they can arrange up to 5 and 7 ton trucks for direct freight shipments going throughout Western Canada. So if you need that service, again, you can reach them online at www.karymovers.com. Yes, check out Carry Movers if you're going to be impacted by this global stoppage, or at least this national stoppage. And Carry Movers can help you. Even if they are not providing the service, they'll be able to recommend other services that can help you to fill that gap. Now, all of this puts immense pressure on Prime Minister Mark Carney's government in Ottawa. Air Canada has formally requested that the federal government step in and impose binding arbitration to resolve the dispute, a move the union has flatly rejected. The union arguing that it would likely result in a less favorable outcome for its members. The government has a history of using back-to-work legislation to end major labor disruptions, as seen in the past with rail and port disputes. However, forcing workers back to their jobs is a politically fraught decision that risks alienating organized labor across the country. This conflict, though, is more than just a contract negotiation. It is a flashpoint in a broader post-pandemic labor reckoning. Frontline workers across many sectors feel they have been undervalued for years, and the union's campaign, branded Unfair Canada, is designed to tap into that national sentiment. The outcome of this standoff and the government's response to it could set a powerful precedent for other major union negotiations for years to come. Yes, let's move on. As thousands of Canadians face uncertainty with their travel plans, having a plan you can rely on for life's other big moves is more important than ever. Live Chat with James is brought to you tonight by Carry Movers Limited. Whether you're moving across the street or across Western Canada, get your free, no-obligation quote online at www.carrymovers.com. Now, moving on, we move now from national crisis to a story of politics, public safety, and a price tag that has taxpayers in BC's fastest growing city reeling. In Surrey, a city on track to become the province's largest, the controversial transition to a new municipal police force has become protracted and a costly battle with no clear end in sight. Yes, it's Surrey's billion-dollar question, policing politics and the public purse. Now, the saga drags on, its delays and frustration, as the political battle over policing in Surrey has been a defining issue for years. Brenda Locke, who is the mayor of Surrey, British Columbia, was elected in 2022 on a specific promise to halt the transition away from the RCMP and towards a new Independent Surrey Police Service, or SPS. Despite her mandate, she has been consistently overruled by the provincial government, which has ordered the transition to proceed. Now, adding to the frustration, the timeline has been pushed back yet again. Surrey officials have recently learned that the full transition, which was supposed to be completed by 2026, will now be delayed by another year to 2027. Mayor Locke has publicly expressed her anger over the new delay, stating that the City of Surrey was not consulted and has been left out of that dialogue. This points to a significant breakdown in communications between the municipal and provincial governments, leaving residents and officers caught in the middle. Now, of course, we look at the staggering costs. Yes, a deep dive into the numbers. The core of this story and the greatest concern for residents is the astronomical and ever growing costs. Now, the Surrey Police, of course, the projected 10-year cost versus the RCMP was an additional $750 million. Current dual policing costs are at about $8 million a month. Full transition completion, again, delayed until 2027. Now, the primary concern, of course, is the impact on property taxes and business investment. A provincially commissioned report by Deloitte, which the mayor claims was hidden from the public for a year, was delivering a bombshell. It projects that the new Surrey Police Service will cost taxpayers a staggering $750 million more than keeping the RCMP over a 10-year period. That figure is hundreds of millions of dollars higher than the city's own previous estimate of $464 million. Now, while that is the long-term projection, the financial bleed is happening right now. With two police forces, the RCMP and the SPS, operating simultaneously during this chaotic transition, the cost to the BC and Surrey taxpayers specifically is an estimated $8 million every single month. With the new delay to 2027, that monthly bill will continue for years to come. Now, the business community is also sounding the alarm. In a statement, the Surrey Board of Trade expressed deep frustration, warning that the enormous tax burden will make Surrey a more expensive place to work, live, and play in. The organization questions whether the transition, which was originally justified as a way to fight rising crime, if it will even achieve that goal, given the immense cost and disruption that it's been taking place. Now, more than policing, it's a part of Surrey's growing pains. This fight over policing does not exist in a vacuum. It is happening as Surrey faces what its own mayor describes as a pattern of provincial underfunding across all critical sectors. In a statement responding to the BC budget earlier this year, Mayor Locke argued that Surrey was being overlooked and was not receiving its fair share of funding for essential services. Now, the policing controversy, therefore, is seen by many as a proxy war for Surrey's broader struggle for regional equity. The city is set to become BC's largest, yet its infrastructure is falling further behind. The mayor points to its glaring deficits in other areas, and let's take a look at those. Now we're looking at healthcare. Surrey has drastically fewer hospital beds than Vancouver, despite having a nearly identical population. With that said, I should point out that yes, the new Surrey Hospital in Cloverdale is under construction, but again, it is a long ways from completion. In education, the school district is grappling with nearly 400 portable classrooms and a significant budget shortfall. This has also had a direct impact in classroom impacts for students, especially those with special needs and learning assistance requirements that have been cut. Some schools have gone from 6 learning assistants to 4, and even reduced further when you look at the numbers who are actually active in classroom at a given time. Now, and when we look at transit, Surrey has the most overcrowded bus routes in the entire region, according to the recent reports. Only 27% of its residents have access to frequent transit service compared to 90% in the city of Vancouver. This is a very large disparity. Now, from this perspective, of course, the province forcing a transition that will cost $750 million more over the next decade against the wishes of the city's elected council feels like a decision about public safety and instead more about another example of provincial government imposing its will without providing the necessary resources to support a rapidly growing city. Now, the prolonged delay to 2027 also creates a dangerous leadership vacuum, with both the RCMP and SPS officers caught in a state of uncertainty that could impact morale, recruitment, and ultimately the safety of the public they are sworn to protect. As Surrey navigates its complex future, many families and businesses are making their own moves into this growing community. Our thanks to Kerry Movers Limited for their support, specializing in commercial and office relocations as well as residential moves. They are Western Canada's favorite and most trusted family-owned and operated moving services provider. Find them online at www.kerrymovers.com. That's K-A-R-Y movers.com. Thank you to them for their support of this episode. Now, from a crisis at home to a critical meeting on the world stage. Yes, tomorrow or later today, depending on your time zone, in Anchorage, Alaska, U.S. President Donald Trump will sit down with Russian President Vladimir Putin for a summit that could alter the course of the war in Ukraine and reshape global security. Now, it's high stakes in Alaska as the world watches as Trump and Putin meet. The meeting comes as the war in Ukraine grinds into its fourth year with, of course, Russian forces making slow, bloody, and costly advances in the country's east. The rhetoric these days leading up to the summit has been a study in contrasts. President Trump has issued stark warning, stating publicly that the President Putin must agree to a ceasefire or face very severe consequences. U.S. officials have suggested those consequences could include new punishing sanctions targeting Russia's vital energy exports. President Putin, on the other hand, has taken a markedly different tone. He has publicly praised what he calls President Trump's sincere and energetic efforts to end the war. In a significant diplomatic overture, Putin has floated the idea that negotiating a new nuclear arms control deal could also be a part of it. That's suggesting it could be a part of a wider effort to secure long-term peace. This has created a tense and highly unpredictable atmosphere. Is Putin genuinely seeking an off-ramp from the conflict, or is this a calculated tactic to disarm the U.S. diplomatically before the talks even begin? Looking at that, yes, there are two irreconcilable visions, and those are the peace plans. Yes, the answer may lie in a vast and seemingly unbridgeable gulf between what each side wants from a peace deal. Now, Russia's demands are a maximalist. Yes, Moscow is insisting that Ukraine withdraw its forces from the 4 regions it illegally annexed in 2022. That's the Donetsk region, the Luhansk, Zaporizhia, and I pronounced that wrong, my apologies, and the Kherson region. Yes, it also demanding that Ukraine declare public and permanent neutral status, abandoning its ambition to join NATO and grant international legal recognition to all of Russia's territorial gains since 2014, including Crimea. This is not a peace plan, it's a demand for Ukraine's effective surrender, and I strongly disagree with it. As most of you are aware, I did spend time covering the war in Ukraine on the front lines. I've seen what Russia is doing there. I've seen the atrocities, I've seen the war crimes, and I've seen the brutality. And at no time do I agree that Russia should be rewarded in any way, shape, or form, including the surrender of any land that belongs rightfully to Ukraine. No way, no how, but we'll watch what Trump tries to negotiate and how Putin knows how to manipulate him and get Trump on side. So we'll watch and see how that plays. But in the meantime, Ukraine's position, backed by its European allies, is the polar opposite. President Vladimir Zelensky has been adamant that any process must begin with a full and unconditional ceasefire. Kiev rejects that any limits on its sovereignty, including its right to choose its own military alliances, and refuses to formally cede any territory to Russia. Into this impasse, President Trump has floated a controversial idea, suggesting a final deal would likely involve some swapping of territories. This concept of a land swap has deeply alarmed Kiev and European capitals who fear that a deal could be brokered over their heads, rewarding aggression and violating the core principles of the international law. Now, the reassurance force, and that is Europe's gambit, yes, in response to this uncertainty and in a sign of a major shift in European security thinking, Ukraine's allies are not waiting idly. A coalition of the willing, comprised of about 30 countries, has been actively planning to deploy a multinational reassurance force to police any future peace in Ukraine. This force could number between 10 and 30,000 troops and would be European led. For months, the success of this plan hinged on a critical unknown. Would the United States provide support? Now, in what European leaders are calling a game-changing development, President Trump has signaled that he is ready to provide vital U.S. military backup, such as air power and advanced logistics, that European armies lack. Yes, European Council President Antonio Costa welcomed the readiness of the United States to share with Europe the efforts to reinforce security conditions. Of course, we know that the taco, he always changes his mind. So again, we don't know what his mood will be like tomorrow. He could completely reverse his position on extending that assistance. Now, this summit, therefore, is testing more than just the relationship between the two leaders. It's testing the very foundation of the post-World War II international order, where the principle that borders cannot be changed by force is now subject of negotiation. Trump's transactional approach, viewing the conflict through the lens of a real estate deal, is forcing European nations into a new, more assertive security role. The creation of the European-led reassurance force is the most concrete evidence of this shift, a sign that the continent is prepared to take more responsibility for its own defense, with or without a firm American commitment. Now, navigating complex international relations requires careful planning, much like the long distance move. Yes, a long distance move requires planning as well. And we are grateful for the support of Carry Movers Limited for their support of this episode. Yes, from planning and packing to safe delivery, Carry Movers handles all the details. Get your free quote today at www.carrymovers.com. That's K-A-R-Y movers.com. Now, let's turn our view to the global and national briefings. It's, yes, some more headlines from around the world and right here in Canada. As it continues, Israel in Gaza, of course, famine, funerals, and a buried peace. The humanitarian crisis in Gaza is deepening at an alarming rate. The United Nations now reports that at least 100 children have died from malnutrition and hunger as a man-made famine takes hold. Aid delivery continues to be severely hampered, and in recent days, Israeli forces have killed multiple Palestinians as they've sought life-saving food aid. Meanwhile, global outrage continues to grow following a targeted Israeli airstrike that killed 4 Al Jazeera journalists in Gaza City. Israel has claimed responsibility for the attack, alleging that one of the journalists, Anas al-Sharif, was the head of a terrorist cell, a claim for which it has produced very little evidence, if any. And in the occupied West Bank, tensions are escalating. Israel's far-right finance minister, Bezalel Smotrich, has announced plans for thousands of new illegal settlement homes. In his own words, the move is intended to bury the idea of a Palestinian state. Now, of course, in other news, the US-Canada trade tensions continue to simmer. The aggressive and often unpredictable foreign policy of Donald Trump and his administration continues to impact Canada directly. The cross-border trade war is escalating, where the U.S. recently doubled its tariffs on steel imports to 50% and has imposed a baseline 35% tariff on a wide range of other Canadian goods not covered by the CUSMA agreement. Yes, that's the Canada-U.S.-Mexico trade agreement. Now, the justification for these tariffs have become increasingly unconventional. Yes, unconventional is the word I was choking on. Yes, I'm just kidding. Okay, but in any event, the Trump administration has linked the tariffs not to trade imbalances, but to Canada's alleged failure to stop the flow of fentanyl across the border. In another example of this transactional approach, U.S. lawmakers have even suggested that smoke from Canadian wildfires could be used as a point of leverage in tariff talks. This demonstrates highly volatile trade environment where long-standing agreements can be upended and upended for unrelated political issues. Now, just think about how asinine that is that they want to raise tariffs because of wildfire smoke blowing across the border, and yet we put up with the pollution coming northbound from the south for decades and generations. But here at home, yes, as we touched on, the wildfire season continues its devastating march. 2025 is now officially Canada's second worst wildfire season on record. As of this morning, over 700 fires are actively burning across the country, two-thirds of which are listed as out of control. And in a heartbreaking development for evacuees in Newfoundland, the crisis has taken a dark turn. Authorities there have revealed that some of the fires that forced communities to flee may have been deliberately set, and an arson investigation is now underway. Let's move on to the AI arms race. Yes, it's heating up. But finally, a major development in the world of technology that underscores the intense competition between the United States and China. On August the 7th, the US based company OpenAI officially released its new artificial intelligence model, ChatGPT 5, which it claims possesses PhD level intelligence. They should try spreading some of that at the White House. Now, this release is widely seen as a direct response to the market shockwave created in January when a Chinese competitor, the DeepSeek chatbot, was unveiled. The release of that Chinese model caused global technology shares to fall sharply, wiping nearly $600 billion off the value of chip giant Nvidia in a single day, the largest one-day loss for a single company in U.S. stock market history. Now, the race for AI dominance is not just a technological competition, it's an economic and geopolitical one as well. And in all fairness and full disclosure, yes, ProPix Canada does have an AI division that we work on different challenges from infrastructure contact mitigation, in other words, trucks hitting overpasses to detect and prevent those, through to dealing with the H5N1 avian influenza detection assessment and reducing the numbers of mass culls around the world. So just as full disclosure, yes, ProPix Canada does have a full AI division. And if you're interested in more of that, just email smile@propixcanada.com. That's SMILE at propixcanada.com. Yes, it is exciting, the AI opportunities, but we also are very much involved in teaching workshops and seminars for corporate AI responsible use and AI ethics in all different areas of government and corporate AI infrastructure implementation. But let's move along. There's positive news for transit riders across the region. A new era for SkyTrain has officially begun as the new, more spacious Mark V model trains are now in service on the Expo line. Yes, the first of the 47 new trains that will bring more comfort and capacity to the system. TransLink is also boosting its green credentials, yes, expanding its fleet of battery electric buses by more than 100, which will support long-term service growth and reduce emissions. And in a fun, nostalgic twist, TransLink has just released its first ever series of collectible trading cards. The first set features 5 different designs celebrating the iconic vehicles that keep our region moving. What they'll come up with in the future, I don't know, but let's get some of the old streetcars. I love the old streetcars, especially Toronto, but I mean, they did have streetcars in Vancouver, electric buses, all of that. So I would love to see some of those featured on these trading cards as well. Now, let's take a look at the changing skyline. Yes, the region's skyline continues to transform, with several major projects reaching completion in this year. In Surrey, Concord Pacific's 2-tower Park George project is now complete, and that's located near King George SkyTrain Station. It adds 676 new condominium and townhouse units to the city centre. Meanwhile, over in Burnaby, 2 new towers are finished up near Metrotown. Yes, Boza Properties' 41-story Central Park House and Anthem Properties' 43-story tower, The Standard. You changing the skyline. I grew up in Burnaby, so it's exciting to watch how it continues to grow and develop. As I now live in South Surrey, it's also exciting to watch how the Surrey community is expanding as well. And now over the river again into Coquitlam is a new height record being set. Leadingham McAllister's 52-story High Point Tower is expected to be completed this summer, officially becoming the tallest building in the city. Now let's take a quick peek at some sports. Yes, there was major excitement at YVR this week as German soccer superstar Thomas Mueller touched down to a hero's welcome. He is the Vancouver Whitecaps' latest star addition, and if you're looking for something to do this weekend, of course you can look no further than the fair at the PNE will officially kick off Saturday. The forecast for opening weekend looks pleasant with a mix of sun and cloud and a high of 23 degrees expected, making it very comfortable to be at the fair. Now, that's all for our show today, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for tuning in for another episode of Live Chat with James. We are excited to be back. We'll be back with more shows and more interactivity. Make sure that you keep in mind, of course, that you can log in and chat with us. You can also call in via the WhatsApp line and other ways of communicating with us, of course, in the rebroadcasts. Leave comments in the comment section as we do pay attention to those and respond to them in upcoming episodes. With that said, that is our show. Our sincere thanks once again to our episode sponsor, Kerry Movers Limited. Yes, Western Canada's favorite and most trusted long-distance moving service provider for decades. Also providing local moving services in the Metro Vancouver and Fraser Valley region. You can get all of your moving quotes online at www.kerrymovers.com. I am James Kuzno here at the ProPix TV studios in Vancouver, British Columbia. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you back here again tomorrow.